Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show, the Thursday edition ahead of Matchweek 32. We're here for the predictions, and obviously, as you can see, we're a threesome today, aren't we? Yeah, we're myself, Peter over in Karlsruhe, and also Cam back in the UK as well. So fantastic to have you guys here today as well. I believe it's a warm day over in the UK as well, Cam. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll keep turning this fan on and off because I don't want it to make too much noise. It's just ridiculous. And our house, when it gets sunny, is just also ridiculous. So, yeah, apologies if people see me sweating or just trying to get cool somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though in the UK, let's be honest, 15 degrees is shorts and t-shirt weather over there, But yeah,
winter shorts and t-shirts, Mark.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, I'm going to let the guys do most of the work today. But just before we start, don't forget that we are sponsored, obviously, by the fantastic Bundesliga boxes. Check out Rich's latest batch, which will be going out soon. And also don't forget Bully News as well, the fantastic English language publication, which obviously Cam is a representative of too. So yeah, without much further ado, let's make a start then. Yeah, so some huge games this week, guys. There really are. I was looking through the fixtures before we started, and it's just endless big games, isn't it? Basically, no more so than the Friday night curtain raiser between Fußball Club Heidenheim and obviously struggling VfL Bochum. So, Peter, I'm going to let you lead us off on this one. What do you think?
Well, it is a do or die match for Bochum. If they are defeated by Heidenheim, they will be officially relegated. And Dieter Hecking in his presser today was very much aware of that. He apologized to the fans for telling them that they lost patience with the at the home draw, I should say, last week. A few interesting personnel things to report here. Our two players that we've made fun of quite a bit on this pod, Matthias Honzak and Kevin Müller, both had strong games last week. And Schmidt was joking at his presser today that Budo Sivzivadze is also ready, and he's ready to prove his doubters wrong off the bench if so necessary. A little bit concerned because Dorsch, who has produced some actually pretty fine performances in the last couple of weeks, is going to be suspended for this one. I'm not quite sure that Marn Busch can replicate his last week. So I'm going to say that this Bundesliga relegation race is not quite over yet. And I'm going to go ahead and tip Bochum for the 2-1 victory based on the fact that Heidenheim have never even scored against Bochum in the top flight. The lone goal came from a Kevin Schlotterbeck own goal. So, yes, much to my chagrin, I would love to see Bochum officially relegated after that BS they pulled on the Grünen Tisch this year. But I think that they do best Heidenheim, who got a little bit of a lucky punch against Stuttgart last week in a match in which they were fairly dominated. Cam, what are your thoughts on the matter?
I went for the exact same scoreline, to be honest. I just think exactly like you that I just don't think it's over yet. And I think for Bochum, they need a win realistically because a draw is still not enough. It's sort of just delaying the inevitable, isn't it, at the end of the day? So I think they're going to be all guns blazing for a win. And as you said, Dorsch is missing for Heidenheim, a big miss. And they're just not very good to watch at home, are they, this season? I think they've won twice, is it, at home this year? And I just think with all of this in mind, I think this scrap's got a whole lot more in it for the last few games, and I went for a Bochum 2-1 win.
Oh, wow. Pretty controversial, but it'd definitely be good for that bottom three race, wouldn't it? But yeah, we're going to turn our attention to the top of the league now. And obviously the Rekordmeister FC Bayern going for the latest triumph. A win today, tomorrow, over this weekend would see them clinch the latest title in the long list as well. But they do travel to Champions League chasing Leipzig. Although myself and Peter said last week that they never seem to win, but they always stay up there in that top 4 or 5, which is kind of weird. But this is going to be another tough game for them. And I'm going to let Cam lead out on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this one this morning, and there's not really going to be a bigger kick in the teeth for Leipzig after a dismal season to then see Bayern win the league on their own turf. And the way things are going, I can't see anything other than that happening. I just think Bayern have been ruthless when they've needed to be. they've managed that gap to Leverkusen pretty beautifully throughout the season, I must admit. They've never once seemed really phased by that gap when it's decreased to maybe 5 points and such like that. So, yeah, all I can see is a comfortable Bayern win, to be honest. I just think that Leipzig have been a very poor side. And as you say, somehow they always seem to be in and around that race for top 5. And, yeah, I went for 3-0. Looking back now, I was probably maybe a bit too harsh on Leipzig, but I just think that Bayern have way too much quality against a very poor Leipzig side going into the back end of the campaign.
Yeah, it seems a fair tip. But Peter, do you concur or?
Absolutely. We almost sync up exactly. I will give Leipzig 1 goal in this instance, based on the fact that I don't believe that Xavi Simons could possibly play as bad this week as he did last week. There's also the matter of David Raum coming back, I do believe, and he's highly motivated to halt this slide. So I think they get 1 goal. But as Cam correctly pointed out, there should be nothing standing in the way. As a matter of fact, they beat Leipzig, 5-1 in the Hinrunde. Granted, it was at the Allianz. But in Leipzig's current form, there should be nothing standing in the way of Bayern's title. I'm not even concerned that Harry Kane will not be on the pitch. You can put Müller or Gnabry up there in the lead striker position. And with the form that Leroy Sané's been in, he's good for a couple of goals as well. So the only reason for Bayern to bottle it deliberately would be so that Harry gets to commemorate winning the Meisterschale with the Frauleins at the Allianz. But I believe that such a conspiracy is highly unlikely. So I'll go for a 3-1 Bayern win.
Yeah, full house for Bayern as well. So, yeah, let's have a look at the next game. So this game is one that maybe doesn't have quite as much line on it as the previous 2, but obviously Gerardo Sioane's reputation and future as manager could potentially be on the line at the minute, because myself and Peter mentioned a lot that Gladbach's recent form has been not good enough. A bit of a collapse, really, in many ways, from a good position a few weeks ago. And they need to win this game to have any European hopes going into the final 2 weeks. And then, obviously, the TSG, Hoffenheim, need to win to kind of dispel any lingering relegation fears as well. Because if Heidenheim win that game on Friday night, then all of a sudden there's big pressure on this one. So, Peter, what are we thinking?
Well, as I mentioned on the Monday pod, I think that the 2 returning actors for Gladbach, Haak and Honorat, once they were able to get rolling, Gladbach were actually a lot better in the game against Kiel, that wild game against Kiel last week. Of course, Gladbach are rife with problems at the moment now. I've been trying to divine what the injury status is of these 3 central defenders, Elvedi, Itakura, Friedrich. I really don't know if any of them are going to be available again. And Fabio Chiarodia may have to slide into the central defensive core once again. Honorat is still fighting injury. Sander may not be fit. On the TSG side, Oliver Baumann is a confirmed out, but that shouldn't necessarily be a problem because Luca Philippe has done well in his 5 appearances this season. I think we have goals in this one, based on the fact that Jonas Omlin, his wobbly situation, he's probably going to let a couple through. And then, of course, I think that basically they did score 3 goals last week, so I will give the Fohlen Elf 2 goals in this one and tip a 2-2 draw. Tough one to tip. Be interested to get Cam's thoughts on the matter now.
Yeah, I actually went for a 3-2 home win for Gladbach, to be honest. I was reading some stuff from their general meeting. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember which day. And just reading some of the stuff that their sporting director, Roland Virkers, was saying, and basically just about how the club is in a much better position than what it was, especially this time last year. And I find Gladbach an intriguing one, really, because they're not set to lose any big, huge names this summer like they have done in the past. And I think they're in a position where, whilst they can't spend millions upon millions, there's at least some sort of project there. And I found one quote interesting when he just said that he feels the squad's gained a bit of an identity again. And I find that, especially going into next year, after a positive year, I know they've tailed off recently, but it's still nice to be there or thereabouts, isn't it? And I think the complete opposite can be said about Hoffenheim. I think that the stuff that you were talking about on the podcast the other week, Peter, about the agent stories and stuff like that. And we know that this club's been in shambles since match week 1. And we know the captain, Andre Kramaric, has been speaking about that all the time alongside Baumann and all of the key figures. We know how big of an issue there is at that club. And I just think that I can't see things easing up towards the back end. And I just think they're going to lose this 3-2.
Yeah, well, that would be definitely a big result in the relegation and also European races. So, yeah, let's move on to another.
I really hope you're right, Cam. I really do.
Yeah. On another side note, when I watched Andre Kramaric for the first time in person the other week, and I must admit he's in my top 3 list of players that I've seen in person, just in terms of sheer intelligence. And when you can see a player who's like levels above his teammates in terms of in his head, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. It was a nice player to watch, really, and someone I wished I would have watched a lot sooner.
His feel for space is incredible, particularly late in the season. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it is funny that Hoffenheim have so many kind of club legends that are really loyal as well. Like we mentioned on Monday, Peter Kaderjabek as well. He's also racked up in the area of 300 appearances for the club as well. Oliver Baumann, and obviously the man you just mentioned, Cam Kramaric as well, who is a true legend for the club, but obviously troubled times in Sinsheim. So, yeah, let's move on to the next game. So it's Union versus Werder, which is quite an interesting one. Two form teams, really, at the minute. Obviously, Union massively turned around their fortunes under Baumgart as well. And obviously, the last time they played at home, they had that thrilling 4-4 draw against Stuttgart as well. Obviously, Bremen disappointed not to win last week in a game they probably should have done against Pauli. But that kind of put a slight buffer on their European hopes. But still, with a great chance, should they win this game, of getting in Europe next season. So go on, Cam. I'm going to let you lead out on this one.
Bremen were quite unlucky in the latter stages against St. Pauli with the Oliver Burke disallowed goal. But Union, I think, I was doubtful when Baumgart came in, I must admit. I'm not saying I don't rate him as a manager, but I think he's not the person that you want to build a football club around. I think Bo Svensson would have been especially with the ambitions that Union have, would have been a much better fit in terms of where they want to go in the future. But in terms of securing their safety for this season, I think he's done a fantastic job. And he's got them playing, I can't remember who I heard say it, but somebody say that it's Union Berlin football, isn't it? It's how you expect to see them play. It's horrible to play against, horrible to go to their stadium. And it's, as I say, how you expect Union to be. And Bremen is a case of they can sniff Europe, and with a win this weekend, who knows? But I could see this going either way. So personally, I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
And then Peter.
Indeed. I'm actually going to tip a Bremen win in this case, based on the fact that Union don't really have much to play for. Although, I mean, you never know. A couple of weeks ago, we saw them explode for 4 goals at the Stadion an der Alten Försterei. No one was expecting that. And the Bundesliga record-breaking opening 45 that we saw against Stuttgart. This is, of course, a rematch of Bo Svensson's last match, the one that saw Svensson ousted over the winter break. And I agree with Cam that I think Svensson should have been given more time. He's an excellent trainer. He's proven himself at Mainz. Sad to see him go so quickly. I think Bremen, despite, I agree with Ken that they were a little bit unlucky against St. Pauli last week, and there was also that very, very narrow 1-0 win over Bochum in the previous week. So we've seen a couple of disappointing results from Bremen after their big 2-1 win or 2-0 win over Eintracht and the 2-1 win over Stuttgart. Excellent wins, those, as they got themselves back into form. Of course, we have the big Oliver Burke. Germans can't stop talking about Oliver Burke, the Scotsman who will be joining Union Berlin after it has now been publicly, I mean, it's all out there in the open that they insulted the Scotsman with this 40% pay cut contract offer. Good God, what were they thinking? I suppose you can't start Oliver Burke against Union, but I anticipate that Njinma will have a better match than he did last week. And Marco Krul could also be an option. He scored a brace against Union in the Hinspiel after all. Union got back to ugly football last week after that exciting tour festival in Köpenick. And I'm a little bit concerned about Kevin Vogt filling in for Diego Leite, the Portuguese defender, whom, you think you've seen it all in football until a man takes a football to the larynx, and it crushes his larynx. So best wishes for a speedy recovery to him. I don't believe he'll be coming back this season. That was one of the ugliest injuries I have seen in football for a long time. So, but anyway, with Vogt there, I think that Bremen will be able to hit the gaps. I don't think it'll be an exciting win, but I'll go with Bremen 1-0 away and keep their European hopes alive.
Yeah, big tips there. So yeah, let's move on to a game which is probably one of the ones that kind of stood out for me on the calendar this week as well. Obviously, a game between Pauli and Stuttgart. I mean, let's not forget that in the Hinrunde for this game, this was a famous win for Pauli. Really, they got that win in Stuttgart, obviously, which kind of started what has been a shocking run of form at home, really, for Stuttgart. But on the road, they have been better, in truth. But in general, I mean, it's been obviously a disappointing Rückrunde. It really has from Stuttgart, hasn't it? Aside from the Pokal, there's not been enough wins in there. And with the talent in that squad, it has been a disappointing Rückrunde for me, for them. But for Pauli, still work to do. Obviously need to get saved. Probably just 3 more points will do it, really. So I'm going to let Cam lead out. No, it's Peter's turn, actually. Peter. Let's let Peter run out on this interesting matchup.
It doesn't much matter to me whose turn it is. Mark, you can leave. You can turn it over to anyone. This one's a difficult one, I have to say, because you and I have both tipped Pauli for a big win the last 2 weeks, and all they've managed to do is draw. So I was tempted to do that again, but a sixth sense tells me that even though Stuttgart really don't have much to play for, I think that what I saw from them last Friday evening against Heidenheim, they, after all, were the superior team. Voltemada and Undav were unlucky to hit the post. I'm really, really impressed with the manner in which Undav is back in form. Poor Erdem Demirovic, after recording his Bundesliga hat-trick a couple of weeks ago, has dipped in form now, is taking some abuse on social media. Hoeneß backed him at his recent presser. Voltemado can also play at the 9. I think Rieder did okay, filling in for Mio on the right wing. I think Leveling is probably going to be fit enough to start, but either Leveling or Rieder on the right should be good enough for Hoeneß's Schwabians. I can't say the same if he's dumb enough to start Jakob Brun-Larsen on the right. And that throws a wrench into the entire equation. But in any event, I like Stuttgart in this one. Even though Alexander Blessin is riding high, even though he won against his hometown club in the Hinspiel, I think that what I saw from Pauli against Bremen last week, that midfield of Buchhalter and Schmeidt, the Swedish central defender, it held together barely. And Blessin doesn't have any other options for the midfield. Irvine is out for the season, and Metcalf is suspended after getting the yellow-red laid on. So I like Stuttgart in this one. I'll tip Stuttgart for a 2-1 victory.
Cam.
Yeah, I went the other way with a 2-1. Quite shocking, I must admit. For once, I've went against Stuttgart on one of these, hoping that I might turn things round inadvertently for the club. But Pauli have been a weird club because I think we've discussed it quite a lot on this pod about the fact that we've been waiting for them to string together a run of results, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. And I know there was when they beat Union quite convincingly a few months ago. And I thought after then they would really kick on and maybe get into the sort of lower mid-table area, but it just hasn't seemed to happen. But as you said, I feel personally that there is another big win, especially at home as well. And I think with Stuttgart's form, the season's practically over in terms of European ambitions. Now it's about everybody keeping fit and, not letting everything fall off completely before the Pokal finale and, that's fast approaching. But on Pauli, I want to talk about Noah Weishaupt, who I think we've also spoke about a lot on this pod. What a great addition he was. Just some added drive from the left-hand side, really, for a side that doesn't score many goals in general. And it's a shame that they're not going to get to keep him, really, with the situation at Freiburg, with Doan likely leaving in the summer. Vincenzo Grifo's not getting any younger, sorry. So, yeah, just another shame about him. But, yeah, I think Pauli will nick it, to be honest. 2-1.
Oh, so the first big disagreement there. Yeah, obviously we're going for a reverse result on that.
As I say, I think it's more reverse psychology because I've predicted Stuttgart to win every time I've been on one of these, and it hasn't happened. So
it's another instance in which I very much hope you're right.
My local club, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, they've not won at all much recently, have they? Let's be honest. So yeah, I think in the Ruck Runde, as I mentioned, it's been a bit of a disaster in truth. But you never know. There's still time to turn it around, and obviously with the Pokal finale coming up as well, you've got a lot to play for yet. So yeah, let's move on to the top spiel, the Saturday evening top spiel between Borussia Dortmund, probably the form team of the league really at the minute, aren't they? Borussia Dortmund hosting one of the off-form teams of the league, VfL Wolfsburg, who have also just completely fallen apart, really, the last 8 games or so. And they're a long time, I think 7-8 games now since their last win in the Bundesliga. And it's not going to get any easier as they visit the Signal Iduna Park, is it? So I'm going to let Cam lead out on this one.
Much like what I just said about Stuttgart, I feel like Wolfsburg's league season is very much done at this point. And I think it's going to be another nail in the coffin this weekend against Dortmund. I think it's one of the easier games to predict. But I just can't believe that a few months ago I was on this very podcast discussing that if Wolfsburg can put a run together against, I think they had St. Pauli, Bochum, they had this on paper easy run. And I said, if they win these games like they should, they're going to be one of the favourites for not just Europa League, but possibly top 4 come the end of the season. But that absolutely didn't happen, as many of our predictions don't. But yeah, I think they're in very poor shape at the minute. And Dortmund, they've just gone from strength to strength, really. I like Kovac. They're playing very, I'd say, common sense football. But it's what needed to happen after the dismal start to the year. And I just think they're looking like a side that should be European contenders at the end of the day. And I've gone for a 3-0 comprehensive home victory.
Wow. Yeah, definitely will be big favourites. Peter, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'll give Wolfsburg a little bit more credit, but I agree with what Cam said. This is probably the easiest match to tip of the weekend. Dortmund have a purpose in this season. As the Germans are referring to it, the Dortmund Aufholjagd, which reminds one a lot of what Edin Terzic was able to accomplish in the 2020-21 campaign. Common sense football is a good way to describe what's going on. We have resurgence for 3 German internationals who have been in very poor form this season. I'm pleased to report Waldemar Anton, Emre Can, and my beloved Julian Brandt and his little, you guys can chat all you want gesture after scoring last week. Yeah, there was with Wolfsburg, I mean, the season is completely done. We now have 2 Danish trainers being linked with replacing Ralf Hasenhüttl. As if Hasenhüttl doesn't have enough to deal with. There was a training ground dust up between Mohamed Amour and Joachim Male, and Kicker actually listed all of the Wolfsburg training ground physical altercations between players in an article that was released today. Edin Dzeko, Nicholas Bentner, Aaron Hunt, Rodrigo Alvim have all been involved in training ground physical altercations in the Autostadt. This team is not going anywhere. I'll give them a little bit more credit, and I'm going to give a little bit more credit to Dortmund as well, and I'll go for a 4-1 victory in the top spiel.
Oh, yeah. Big one. So, yeah, another game that is quite interesting, especially for the away side in this one. Obviously, Holstein Kiel, depending on the result Friday night, maybe we'll have to win this one to have a realistic chance of staying up going into the last 2 games. Because obviously a 6-point gap could potentially open up. So I guess the fixtures haven't really panned out that well with the kind of timings for this one. But obviously Augsburg had a rare defeat really last week. They've not lost many at all in the Ruck Runde. They've been one of the most solid and impressive sides. So they'll be hoping for a top half finish. Probably Europe is a bit too far for them at the minute, but a top half finish remains realistic. So, Peter, what are we going for this one?
Damn it, I knew you were going to throw to me here. This is a tough one. Do we believe in the sprinting storks? Is there a miracle from Marcel Rapp's sprinting storks in store? A tough trip to Augsburg here, as they have also been quite good this season. I don't really know if the Fugerstädter European ambitions are still realistic at this point. But Kiel's great escape. What do we say? What can one say about this? I mean, this is so unpredictable. Even the Hinrunde Spiel was ridiculous. Kiel won 5-1, and both Shuto Machino and Phil Harris, who I thought about you, Cam. There was this site linking Phil Harris with
I know.
to Wolverhampton.
Yeah, I know. It sent our fan base into raptures yesterday. Everyone was Googling him, looking at his FBref stats and everything, watching compilations of Phil Harris, for Christ's sake.
Where the hell did they find compilations of him? Who's putting the FC Hamburg highlights up?
You're asking real questions.
Okay, well, in any event, how can Kiel keep scoring goals like this? I mean, they're a very, very vertical team. They are. That's why we call them the sprinting storks. They actually lead the league in sprints, as I mentioned on this pod before. So anything is possible with this long kick and rush vertical stuff. They have some injuries. Ivesic and Tolkien probably won't be available. I'm not quite sure that's relevant. I think that Torup's sort of compact formation will find a way of slowing it down. And I think that Torup and his staff will have done their homework in this one. I'll say that there's goals in this when it'll probably be a 0-0 draw, but I'll go ahead for a 1-1 draw. Now I pass it off to Cam on this very, 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 very difficult match to tip.
Yeah, I think I've tried to go with my heart rather than my head on this one, because obviously, whilst not as desperate as Bochum, they need a win at the end of the day, really, for any sort of hope. And Augsburg, can you maybe argue that they could possibly be on the beach now, with European ambitions maybe being a bit too far? And I just think that it would be amazing to see Bochum win tomorrow and then a Kiel win at the weekend. And then we've got a nice little scrap building up for the final few games. But like Peter said, Augsburg do have quality, and Torp would have done his homework. So I think I'm thinking more with my heart when I'm saying that Kiel are going to nick a 2-1 victory.
Oh, that's a big call there, yeah. But it would be massive for the league and massive for the sprinting Storks, as you say. I mean, that is one of the hardest ones to tip. But yeah, let's see if it comes in. So moving on to a team, I know that you, Cam, often kind of visit down there, don't you, in Breisgau?
Yes.
Freiburg. Myself and Peter have also been over there this season.
Yeah, I watched that vlog a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, it's a great day out as well over there in Freiburg. It really is. The friendliest people, I think, in all Germany, apart from Lautern, of course, for Peter. Yeah. But but it's an interesting game as well. And there's so much riding on this one. I mean, obviously for Freiburg, very realistic chance of Champions League after kind of really doing well under Schuster in his first season. But obviously for Leverkusen, they have to win and hope Bayern lose, basically, to stay in the race. Most people would say it's not on, but I mean, it isn't over until it's over, as they say, you know what I mean? So go on, Cam, what are we going to get from this one?
Yeah, I think this game really rests on what happens between Leipzig and Bayern first. If we're to see Bayern wrap up the title before Sunday, we're about to see a completely different game happen in Freiburg, aren't we? And I think if that were to happen, then Freiburg are in a very good position to take advantage of that. I think the best thing about them this season, and I mean it in a complimentary way, they've won the games they're supposed to win. And I think they're going to be in a position this weekend where Leverkusen will be vulnerable. And especially, I know Peter was giving some amazing praise to him last week, but Johan Manzambi, what a young talent he is. Or when I watched him in person the other week, just his energy, just the speed of thought, everything about him. And I just think they're a nice side to watch on the eye at times, Freiburg. They've been frustrating at times, but at the same time, they've got good quality. And I think they could nick a 2-0 win against a potentially vulnerable Leverkusen side who will have lost the title by Sunday if our predictions are correct.
Yeah, and Peter, do you concur?
I actually do. And I believe that Bayern will sew up the title. And I believe that Leverkusen... Isn't it funny that all three of these Sunday fixtures had these crazy games in the Hinrunde? I mean, you had Kiel besting Augsburg 5-1. have this one where Leverkusen beat the everlasting hell out of Freiburg just before the winter break. 4 score points for Florian Wirtz, 4 goals for Patrick Schick, and then they had their little Christmas concert. That was quite the scene. First time I've seen a Christmas concert from Leverkusen. Everybody steals from Union. But at any rate, I really think that there's going to be a lot of goals in this one, because I think that the quality of Freiburg, Manzambi didn't start last week, and that was despite this performance in the match that Cam saw live, in which the German press just went absolutely wild, and we're comparing.
There was that one run, wasn't there? That one, I think, when he hit the post at the end of that run. Oh my god!
Yes, indeed, and that little haka, a back heel on the opening goal too. It was just incredibly super slick, and his entire game. I mean, he was. I think. When I was talking about him on the pod, I said, I'm getting Jude Bellingham vibes here. The way that he's just a box-to-box player, straight up, all the way. So he didn't start last week. I think maybe he starts this week, and we get a chance to see a show. We've talked about Leverkusen constantly about how the chaos in this club, and the post-match reactions last week. Everybody, Jonas Hoffmann, Robert Andrich, and even Simon Rolfes himself are just admitting, we need answers. We need clarity. We need to know what the hell is going on here. And until then, everybody is sitting on their suitcases and preparing to get the hell out of here. Yeah. So I think we get a weird, wild, and fun game. Just absolute fun. And something else that I mentioned on the pod on Friday, the ridiculous productivity from the Freiburg right back position this season. Whoever the hell starts at right back, whether it's Lukas Kubler, Kilian Sedilia, or Max Rosenfelder last week, Schuster, he really knows how to get goals out of that side. And so I'm going to say, a 4-3 win for SA Freiburg and a 7-goal spectacular. Watch it be a 0-0.
just on the right back thought, it was the exact same one, because I was there match day 1 when they played Stuttgart, and Kubler scored 2 that day, and I've never saw a right back be so clinical as what I saw Kubler that day. There was one effort from distance and then a brilliant header at a corner. You would have thought he's a centre forward, but obviously not.
He scored a brace. Right back. I know. He scored a brace in the match that Mark and I attended against Wolfsburg.
I was just going to say that too. Yeah, incredible. Yeah. I think he's on 6-7 goals, and as you say, Sildilia's got 2 or 3, and now Rosenfelder as well. So it is incredible, really, how many fullbacks, and also, it's just incredible. I think Gunter's also got a few from the other side as well. So it's an incredible effort from them. Moving on to the final game of the weekend, and obviously it's kind of a derby as well, as Peter calls them, the Rhine Hessen against the true Hessen of Frankfurt. And and I guess this was a crazy match. I don't know if you remember this one, guys, from the Hinrunde, but I remember Mainz won 3-1, even though I think Frankfurt had about 4.5 XG or something in that one. They just couldn't score, and Mainz got 3 goals on the break. I think a couple of weird own goals I seem to remember as well in that one. But this is going to be a hell of a match. Obviously, Frankfurt win, they're pretty much sold into the Champions League, and they're obviously playing a Mainz side who, unfortunately, now are facing fading European hopes after a very poor run, and also a difficult remaining schedule as well for the last 3 games. So go on, Cam, lead us out on this one.
The derby that some people would tell you is a derby, some people will tell you it's not. It depends on which side of the border you're from, I guess, doesn't it? This is a strange one, because Mainz have really faded recently, haven't they? But I think they need a big result, and there's not really a better way to do it than against the team that they would probably consider as the Bundesliga rivals. So I have gone for a 1-0 Mainz victory, but I do think it could go either way, because we know that Frankfurt have quality. But as do Mainz, they've shown it all season. They've shown how organised they are, how well coached they are. And I just think that eventually that little tiny blip that they've had in recent weeks, it's got to come to an end. And we know that Frankfurt can be temperamental. They're not exactly a perfect side themselves. So, I'm tipping a 1-0 win.
We'll split on this one. I also have a great deal of respect for Mainz. I honestly well and truly do, and what Bo Henriksen has done there. I think I've probably written 12 articles on Bo Henriksen this season. He's always good. The grand Rumpelstiltskin Danish boob is always good for a story, whether it's talking about being his own carnival costume or, I mean, he's ridiculous. There was even a story this week. He he took them go-karting to a barbecue on Monday. Yeah, the team. So the thing is that I really do remain exceedingly impressed with the second half tactics that we saw from Dino Topmüller against Augsburg, and that also were extremely effective against Leipzig last week. With Ansgar Knauf and Jean-Manuel Bahoya serving as a sort of buttressing attackers behind Ekitike. And it was an excellent game from everyone involved, including those young Frankfurt wingbacks Collins and Brown, and two German U21 internationals, and Kaiserslautern-born Robin Koch, who knows well what it's like to face Mainz in what's the real Pfälzer derby, Mainz and FC Kaiserslautern. I mentioned a little bit, probably I might have been thinking a little bit too much about Kaiserslautern when I talked about the problems that Bo Henriksen is having at the wingback position, because Lautern obviously have much more serious problems on those two flanks. But it is getting a little bit worse here. I think that Kachi who has not been great, is questionable for this one. I'm not entirely sure who. Well, I guess he could move to Costa up there. That is his natural position. But in any event, yeah, I think that Frankfurt, they are on the march. They are rolling, and they need this to secure Champions League qualification after that most unfortunate Europa League elimination against Spurs. I think that they take this one away. Should be a good game, but I'll go ahead with a 3-1 victory for Frankfurt.
Interesting. So let's have a look at the table if the guys are right. So as things stand, it would be Bayern Munich claiming the Meisterschale as things stand with 2 games remaining. Leverkusen would be untouchable in second, but obviously a relatively disappointing season for them. And then Frankfurt and Freiburg making up the top 4 and in a pretty good position as well, with Dortmund just a little bit behind. Mainz obviously completing the European positions, and Leipzig potentially dropping out altogether of the top 6, which would be quite a scene. Then obviously down at the bottom, wow, there were some big tips as well down there at the bottom. Kiel would go bottom with the draw, even though it would still be a decent point that would keep them in touching distance of 16th place, with Heidenheim 2 points clear and Bochum breathing life into their season in 17th. But obviously the point for Hoffenheim would pretty much make them safe, considering the goal difference is 10 better than Heidenheim. And obviously Pauli more or less definitely safe with an even better goal difference of -11. So yeah, a lot to play for. Obviously, thanks for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to have Peter and Cam on the show for the first time together as well. And I'm sure it won't be the last time we have them both on together. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as well. Let us know what you guys think too. We want to know what you think of the predictions as well, and see if they match up with the guys this week. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again on Monday for the review of these matches. So thanks a lot, guys, and servus. Bye-bye. All the best.